amend Standing Orders 22, 23, and 27 too. Due to the content of the motion and what the motion is requesting of this Parliament, I believe that a debate on this issue needs to also be based in evidence and fact along with the personal experiences we have faced while attempting to go through the current structure we have in place. It is also apt to note, Mr. Speaker, that though the standing orders are not renewed automatically, Parliament does have the ability to often rules the standing orders and determine whether the current rules fit our circumstances or whether some changes are necessary. It must be noted that given the government's agenda and the massive growth in our GDP, the ability of the people's representatives to ask questions and receive timely responses to questions asked and motion filed is critical as questions and motions submitted by members of Parliament are critical tools for holding the government accountable and ensuring that the voices of our constituents are heard. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, while it is my personal belief that the proposed amendments are fair and should be supported by all, I thought it wise to do some investigation as to what pertains in these matters in other parliamentary jurisdictions. The question of just how long it takes for questions and motions to leave the desk of a member of Parliament, particularly an opposition MP, and reach the order paper is therefore a reasonable question, especially to ask in determining whether we are meeting the criteria of timeliness. Across the Commonwealth, different parliaments have developed different procedures for dealing with questions and motions. However, one common theme that emerges is the need for timely consideration of these important matters. Permit me, Mr. Speaker, to highlight what is done in the United Kingdom. The UK Standing Order states the following: notices of questions, motion amendments. Notices of questions shall be given by members in writing to the table office in a form determined by the Speaker. A notice of a question or of an amendment to a motion standing on the order paper for which no day has been fixed, or of the addition of a name in support of such a motion or amendment, which is given later than half an hour after the moment of interruption, shall be treated for all purposes as if it were a notice handed in after the rising of the House. A member shall indicate on the notice of any question whether it is for oral or written answer, and a member may indicate a date for answer of a question for written answer in accordance with paragraph 4 of this order. Where a member has indicated that a question is for written answer on a named day, the minister shall cause an answer to be given to the member on the date for which notice has been given, provided that a notice has appeared at latest on the notice paper circulated 2 days, excluding Saturday and Sunday, before that on which an answer is desired. And B, a member may not table more than 5 such questions on any one day. Notice of a question for oral answer may be given only for answer on the next day on which the member to whom it is addressed is due to give oral answers. What we're seeing here is that the member who is tabling the motion, the member who is, we will get to that. We will get to that, ma'am. So the member of Parliament who is requesting an answer to a question should be answered, and they have a time limit. They can't ask for a question to be answered before 2 days. So they have a timeline that is set there. And so anytime after 2 days, on a particular date, and that is put on the standing. So it is also necessary to note that in the UK, in addition to oral questions, there are 3 main types of written parliamentary questions. Ordinary questions that are in the House of Commons. Questions do not have to be answered on a specific date. An MP will date a written question for 2 days after they have been tabled. The convention is that the MP can expect it to be answered within 7 days of the question being tabled. Name day questions. The question specifies the date on which they should receive an answer. The MP must give a minimum of 2 days notice for these types of questions. MPs may not table more than 5 name day questions. Question time. Questions originally tabled for oral answer that do not get answered at oral question time are submitted to the government department as name day question and given written answers. The deadline for oral questions is 12:30 p.m., 3 sitting days before the question time takes place. For Northern Ireland, the deadline is 12:30 p.m., 5 sitting days before the question time takes place. A sitting day is a day when the House is meeting. So Mr. Speaker, I heard just now the honourable member speaking to the fact that the British Parliament meets a different way than we do meet, and we understand that. But that does not negate what is being done. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, that even though they're meeting on a daily basis, that they have the ability to determine when they want questions answered. And so while it is that we say we are a parliamentary democracy, that we have to also look at what is happening in other parliamentary jurisdictions to determine what will best work in our country. 2 days, yes, 2 days. Mr. Speaker, India's standing orders reveal the following. The Secretariat gives at least 5 days notice to the minister concerned to answer a question. In practice, however, in order to give the concerned minister as much time as possible for the preparation of an answer, an advance copy of a question in the provisionally admitted form is forwarded to that ministry online through email or in other modes. A member or a minister may move a motion for discussion on a matter of general public interest. But the notice of at least 5 days will normally be given to the concerned Parliament Secretariat on the intimation to the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs for moving of that motion. If a notice of a motion is admitted by the Chairman and Speaker, it is put down in the list of business of the House concerned for the day on which its discussion is fixed. If, however, no day for its discussion has been fixed, it is notified in the bulletin as a no day yet named motion. So the person who is putting forward the motion can determine what day they would like that motion to be heard. And if they choose not to put a date, then it will go into that particular bracket and it will come up at a particular time on the agenda. In Canada, Mr. Speaker, the standing orders of the House of Commons specify strict timelines for the submission of questions and motions, with members required to submit their request at least 48 hours in advance of the sitting at which they wish to raise the issue. This allows the clerk to prepare the necessary documents and ensure that the Speaker and other members have sufficient time to consider the matter before it is raised. Canada's standing order specifically states, and I quote, 48 hours notice shall be given of a motion for leave to present a bill, resolution, or address for the appointment of any committee, for placing a question on the order paper, or for the consideration of any notice of motion pursuant to Standing Order 124. So, Mr. Speaker, what we have is that between England, Canada, and India, it's obvious that while they may meet more, what is part-time here in Guyana's context are the parliamentarians. The parliamentarians are on part-time, but as far as I'm aware, the Speaker's on full-time. And so if it is that we are looking at the fact that in the UK and Canada, they meet daily, the Speaker as a full-time employee of Parliament has the ability to be able to be a...
I don't remember, I remember a correction. I just want you to point me to the standing orders where it says the Speaker is full-time.
Mr. Speaker, are you clarifying that the Speaker is also part-time?
As far as I know, speakers don't have 8 to 5 and...
No. It's full-time doesn't mean 8 to 5.
I don't know. As far as I know, speakers have continued with their profession while...
Okay, so the Speaker is also... So what we're admitting to here is that our whole legislature is part-time, which I think we should also now go and look to whether or not that should remain the same in this 21st century. But we will get to that probably in another motion. So here in our own National Assembly, we have similar procedures in place. However, the proposed amendments to Standing Orders number 22.3 and 27.2 will further strengthen our procedures and help to ensure that questions and motions are dealt with in a timely and efficient manner. By requiring members to submit their questions and motions to the Speaker within 4 days of receipt, we can ensure that the Speaker has sufficient time to consider the matter and determine whether it is appropriate for discussion in the House. Similarly, by allowing the speaker to direct that questions and motions be altered or deemed inadmissible if they infringe on any of the provisions of the standing orders, we can ensure that only the most relevant and appropriate questions and motions are discussed in the House. Mr. Speaker, I know there's a lot being said about the what is happening in the House. A lot is being said about the fact that we are part-time. A lot is being said about what the speaker should or should not be able to do. The reality is that the standing orders, for one, is not a permanent document. It's not written in stone. It has the ability for the Parliament and the National Assembly to determine whether changes can be made. And that is why we are here today discussing this particular motion. It does not have to deal with what happened in 2020, whether it's SOPs, 33, 34, whatever the case is. The reality is that the members of the opposition believe that a more timely response to the questions and motions is needed, especially with what we're dealing with today. And so that is what guided the motion, and that is why I am here at this particular moment, standing and defending and would like to support this particular motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Now the Honorable Member, Ms. Catherine Hughes. Honorable Member, Ms. Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I too want to stand in support of this motion. And I want to start again. We've heard a quote from Erskine May. I just want to set the stage with a different quote, and that is the classic definition of parliamentary privilege, which is found in Erskine May's treatise on the law, privileges, proceedings, and usage of parliament. And I start the quote here. Parliamentary privilege is the sum of certain rights enjoyed by each house collectively and by members of each house individually, without which they could not discharge their functions. I want to repeat that part, without which they could not discharge their functions, and which exceed those possessed by other bodies or individuals, end of quote. So asking questions on behalf of the people of Guyana, who we are elected to represent, is a parliamentary privilege, Mr. Speaker. These proposed amendments force us to discuss a fundamental in our parliamentary responsibility. And that is, we've heard it this morning, even from the other side, the ability to scrutinize the work and decisions of the executive on behalf of the people of Guyana, which we have been elected to do. The ability to ask questions ensures we inform, educate the people on key decisions made in this House that impact on the development and future of the same citizens who put us here to represent them, ensuring transparency and accountability. Mr. Speaker, as a parliament, we've been an abysmal failure in how we've handled the presentation of motions and the importance of ministers being accountable to the parliament and the people in terms of a timely response to questions. As we just heard from the Honorable Member Sarabo's presentation, in other jurisdictions, answers are provided, or a commitment to provide an answer is given within as low as 2 days and as high as five days. So, Mr. Speaker, in any part of the world, we assume that a parliament's willingness to answer any question that citizens or member of parliament may have would be something that you want to endorse, something you want to support. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that on January 20th, I submitted 12 questions on the Gas to Shore project. And just to stress the importance of this project, I want to refer to an oil gas report. I have it here for the record if necessary, which quotes the Honorable Guyana Prime Minister, who, and the headline says, Guyana Prime Minister pegs cost of gas to shore energy project at 1.8 billion US dollars. 1.8 billion US dollars. And Mr. Speaker, 12 questions are asked on the 20th of January on this very important 1.8 billion US dollar project. And Mr. Speaker, a response was given 27 days later. And I want to read what that response said. If you listen, honorable member, you will see what that response was. So the questions were posed on the 20th of January, and on the 3rd of March, I received a written response to my questions which were submitted. And here is the response. His Honor the Speaker has asked me to inform you that the information you sought by way of questions dated the 20th of January was supplied by Mr. Winston Brassington, head of the Guyana Gas to Energy Task Force, in the Daily Chronicle and Stabroek News of the 16th of February. So what I'm showing you is that from the 20th of January to the 16th of February, the people of Guyana and all of us were not entitled to a response and to be educated on those critical issues on a 1.8 billion US dollar gas project. And this is precisely why we're saying, in good stead and in good faith, that we could do better as a parliament in terms of how we are educating our population on key issues and key questions that they are asking. So I want to highlight that when that question was asked on the 20th of January, there was nothing in the public domain that answered the questions precisely. And so this parliament waited 27 days to more or less brush me and my questions off. And this is precisely why we're debating this moment. At a minimum, within 4 days, an indication as to where your questions would stand is something that I would think that we can consider. And the thing that we keep missing is what is the perception that is created everywhere in the public domain when for more than 26 days you are unable to answer key questions. Mr. Speaker, the standing orders quite rightly say, and I quote, that the Speaker shall be the sole judge. And Mr. Speaker, we support that. I endorse the role that you play. Mr. Speaker, we hold you to a high standard. Guyana expects you to be strong in your independence. What would have been so terrible in forwarding those critical questions for answer? Even if at a minimum, we were just ensuring that all Guyanese could remember the exact answers as proffered by the Honorable Prime Minister, who is in charge of the sector, or just to ensure we were continuing the process of educating and informing people. Mr. Speaker, can't we work together on something as basic as this? Providing credible information. So, Mr. Speaker, I think I've explained the spirit in which the questions were asked and the high anticipation that there would have been answers that the Prime Minister himself would have presented to those critical answers. Mr. Speaker, I want to go to another aspect that's very, very close and is part of the same contents of questions. And I want to quote 21A. The proper object of a question is to obtain information on a question of fact within the official cognizance of the minister to whom it is addressed or asked for official action. So that's why we're asking the question. We want the man or woman in charge to answer. I want to take us to subsection K in that same section on the contents of questions. And K says, a question shall not be asked as to whether statements in the media or of private individuals or bodies or persons are accurate. And that is understandable. We can't ask a person in authority, say a minister, to have to answer questions made by the media or a private individual that happen to be in the public domain. Mr. Speaker, the flip side of that would be to ask the public or a sitting member of parliament to go to a newspaper article, which is a report by a member of the media of a specific report of a specific group of information. In this case, it was information presented on the oil and gas industry, but they were quoting not the minister. You're quoting a third person and saying the reporter, the media reported is actually accurate and gospel. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I hope that I've shown the flaw in this situation. I hope that I've shown that 27 days is insufficient time, is way too long to have no response. And then to get a response that says, no, I'm sorry, read the public newspaper, especially when we have every day persons that say that what was reported as them saying, in fact, was not so. And that is not only for the Chronicle, but all newspapers. And therefore, I think the ethical and the action that should have been taken with humility is that the question should have been presented, the Honorable Prime Minister answer, and people be better informed. Reason I would like to suggest, and I endorse the recommendations of this motion, that 4 days is enough time to say what the position of these questions and what the results could be. Answering questions is a parliamentary privilege, and it is there to inform and educate us all. I hope we can get support for this. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. And now for the Honorable Member, Mr. Alistair Charlie.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker and esteemed members of this distinguished Parliament. Honorable Speaker, I have listened to the speakers before me, the opposition speakers before me, and permit me to rebut to the Honorable Sarabu Hali. The Honorable Member